Hello and welcome back to the channel, and thank you for joining me on a nice late autumn stroke winter walk. The sun is hanging low in the valleys. The temperature hasn't really got up in the shade of some of the hills and the trees, and it's got that real nice feel, particularly as we've gone into December. It kind of adds to that feel of Christmas coming around the corner. It just feels really wintry. I do know there is more bad weather on the way, so I've escaped the workshop and I've come out to this local nature reserve that is managed by a charity or a trust. I'm not going to name them because I haven't looked into them too much, and unfortunately in this day and age charities and trusts are under as much scrutiny and need to be looked into before you endorse anything as much as any of us or anything else that we know of or think of. So till I've done that kind of research, I'm not really going to publicise them. It doesn't see no footfall. By the video intro, the lanes, there's a good couple of miles of single track lanes to get to it. There's no real parking, it's difficult access, and on top of that you really have to know how to use your reverse gear in your car. If you can't reverse, it's pointless coming onto these roads, because quite simply you're not going to get a 15-ton tractor and trailer reverse hundreds of meters up a lane when they know full well you've only got 50 meters and you've got a reverse gear as well. So this kind of nature reserve is pretty much left unused, except for the immediate locals that live in the area and the few people that know about it. It's no secret, it is on the internet, and like I said, it's managed by a charity or a trust, so it's freely available for anybody to come here and enjoy as much as me. I'm not trying to keep it a secret location. It's like I said, till I'm really happy what I'm endorsing, the charity itself or trust, I'm kind of keep it a little bit low key, but it is freely available for you. And most of you know I operate in North Cornwall, and that's as much as I'm going to say. So this nature reserve is 23 acres. It runs alongside a woodland with 3 paddocks above it, and below the woodland there is a major river. Now, it was donated to the trust, and you can still find evidence of charcoal production in this woodland. The woodland is predominantly native species: oak, elder, beech, ash. There is sycamore as well. Sycamore isn't really a native tree, but it's been here long enough, I suppose most of us consider it native, but it's not in reality. But I'm just walking up a nice little leaf covered track, and I'm entering the paddocks. This is the first paddock. It is grazed. They sympathetically graze it in a traditional manner, and as you can see, it has a lot of like natural and native plants growing within the grazing area itself. I'm just coming up this track which will lead to one of the bigger paddocks. There's some nice little stands of hazel there running alongside what would have been the old hedgerow. As you can see, the hedgerow, if left unmanaged, will gradually creep out onto the land. What will happen is those brambles will move further out into that paddock beyond, and primary species, or the fastest growing ones, will take over where those brambles are, and then the bigger and slower growing trees will envelop this area, and the march out into that paddock will continue. And if left unchecked, that paddock would disappear into woodland. So I'm going to have a little look around, and I'm going to sit down and have a cup of coffee and enjoy being in this wooded area. So yeah, you can join me for that, but we still have to make our way up. As soon as you get to the top of this path, you can either split left or right, but we'll go right, head up. Make it, do the hard work now, and it's all downhill from there. So you can clearly see where the footfall is. But we're going to take the right hand track, and as you can see, it's on a valley, and you can see how steep it rises up to the top. Now those trees at the very top, I believe, belong to a different landowner, so it's not where that basically the paddock ends there. That's as far as you can, that's the limit where you can go. Well, we have some helicopters or sycamore seeds. They didn't escape the actual tree, and they're actually beginning to dry out and wither on the actual tree itself. And there's some lime green buds on this particular tree here. They're getting ready for spring. There's some catkins or lamb's tails. And as you can see, all the leaves have got some really nice yellows, oranges, golds and lime greens as they begin to fade and drop off. Right, just walking up this path, you can see there's a little hazel tree. Well, it isn't quite so little actually. It's about 5 feet tall. And it's got a foothold here, and I think there's an oak next to it. Yeah, that looks like an oak tree, and that's about 3 foot tall. As you can see, they're not actually cutting the grass or doing anything. And because the animals have left this untouched, they may well have the opportunity to grow into full-size trees where they more than likely came from. Right, I'm just walking through a natural gap in the hedge, or one that has been left eroded by time, livestock, and the hedge just degrading, and you can go straight into the next paddock. As you can see, you could quite easily follow this track even if the mist and fog came down, and you could only see a few feet in front of you. But it is a steep old drag up there, and the contrast between the greens and browns and the autumn colours and that blue sky is absolutely beautiful in here. And once you've climbed to almost the top of this paddock, there's that gate into the woodland itself. I can hear the roar of the river down there. It's still pretty full from all the storms we had last week. Storm Bert, all the runoff and all the water soaking out of the land. And I think I might actually sit here and have a cup of coffee a moment. Well then, I don't know about you, but quite often I find myself starting off on social media and platforms looking at one particular topic, and I quickly get directed through the algorithms, and because I'm looking in that same genre where it could be considered the same type of thing, slow living, country lifestyle and the outdoors. And on a lot of occasions I'm looking at it and I don't fully connect with what I see. By that I mean, when you start delving into the slow lifestyle, slow living, back to nature, it sometimes feels a massive disconnect to myself and possibly a lot of other people. But I do watch them and I'm drawn to them quite simply for the entertainment value, the cinema quality filming, which is beautiful and exquisite. But watching a extremely fit young man with a beard swinging an axe, cutting through a log effortlessly, and got his dog beside him, going back to the log cabin, and looking like they live on nothing but what the land provides. And then on the opposite end of that, you've got a beautiful young woman, swanning through fields of meadows with meadow grass and flowers trailing their hands behind them in a nice old Victorian type of linen dress, sun beaming through. It kind of looks beautiful to look at, and then going back and cooking old-fashioned recipes with ingredients in an old-fashioned manner, and longingly gazing out the window at a countryside that in reality doesn't exist anymore. But I find myself drawn into that kind of thing of slow living, as well as probably you. Some people have said to me, it must be really great that you're able to get a living from doing what you do, being out and about in the countryside. In that is true, but I'm like you. I have commitments like you. I do a range of other jobs for employment, and I don't have as much free time as what my channel might have, me or it suggest. On top of that, I've got a young family and a wife that needs a lot of help and assistance, so I don't really fully connect with what I see on those programs for slow living. I'm enjoying this for a few moments, but this isn't my life. I have a life over the top of that hill, which is very different from what may be seen on camera. But for those few moments, I'm just enjoying this, slowing down. But what do we think of as slow living? For me, my generation, Gen X and the boomers and the ones before, slow living for the majority of the population was retirement or ill health, where you actually took things slower. There's a big thing about, particularly in the generations after, living my best life. People are kind of wanting to do what you see on the internet and possibly living a lifestyle like me from a very early age. I've only been able to acquire this quite simply because I've done the 16-hour shifts in the factory. I've been away with the army. I've done things which has allowed me at the ripe old age of 55 to kind of have a slower lifestyle, to kind of get to the point I can come out mid-afternoon for a couple hours and do this and enjoy this. Whereas a younger person traditionally would have to be working all these hours to pay for the necessities of life in a young family. Things are hard at the moment, and I wouldn't take no discouragement if you can't match up to what you see with the slow living mantra. It's something to aspire to, it's something to work towards, but like I said, don't have to go back too far. Slow living was retirement or ill health, or you were rich or had a trust fund or it inherited to enable you to slow down and live a slower life. I fully, you know, concede that I had none of this as a younger man. It was a few moments snatched here or there between 16-hour shifts or double shifts, working weekends to pay the mortgage, to pay for my kids to have shoes to go to school, to make the car loan repayment, to pay for the windows that rotted out and I had UPVC fitted. You know, I was the same as everybody else. So don't be discouraged when you're watching social media. Try to look beyond it and realise that not everything is what you see. And there may be a backstory. So yeah, I get swept up on it, and at the moment I'm quite intrigued by the slow living lifestyle, which I guess some people would say I've kind of got there, and I have to some degree, but I still have commitments, and I haven't reached that fantasy which we all see on social media and YouTube, where I'm as free to just literally wander through the hills and the valleys unimpeded by a care in the world, or seemingly. So yeah, just a quick one. Don't get discouraged. Just get out like what I'm doing here for an hour and a half. Utilize the countryside and the outdoors for those few moments and store them in the memory banks to get you through till you get to do it again. You will probably never, like me, be able to mimic what you see on social media. It's not a fantasy. I'm sure there are some people living that lifestyle, but for the vast majority, we just make do with those moments that we can snatch. Now my coffee is boiling there, and I'm going to get it, sit down and enjoy these views. Right then, as a stick maker, I've got some prime examples of where they've been coppicing hazel to let you have a look at, just to rest assure the minds of some people that might think that me taking sticks on occasions could be kind of environmental damage. But it's really not, and I'm going to show you an extreme example. Right, you can see that tree stump there, it's hazel, has been cut right off. All the big main trunks have been taken, and it was just a little stump. It's probably 8 inches out of the ground, but look at the runners it's thrown up. It's still got some leaves on it, which is surprising, although they are going, but that will grow really vigorously now, and a lot of those shoots will become big main ones again. New hedge line there, they're trying to separate the actual woodland from the paddock, and they've done a little bit of a clearing here before you get to the new hazel growth, which is starting to encroach on the paddock. And you can see what they've cut back there and just left, and it's left there for a reason. It's going to rot down and provide nutrients to the ground and homes for insects. But yet again, one that they've cut completely, and you can see all those shoots coming out of what you would probably consider a dead tree stump. But it's alive. Hibernating now for winter. Right then, come on, I've packed up. Let's get into this woodland and have a little walk about. And reference to the conversation we've just had, I do have to get home. With that sun just coming through these young trees, it looks really nice. And you can see it's managed here, because these young trees would probably be, if they weren't managed, quite a tangled mess. But they've created openings, so hopefully they will become old trees. Yet again, the path is easily followable. I can hear the river roaring down below me. We will go down beside it, the path will take us, so we will get to see it in a moment. But isn't this stunning? Absolutely stunning. So a little bit slippery underfoot. Right, we round this corner and we drop down onto basically like a terraced walkway. And I'm guessing this was made so they could get the charcoal when they used to process charcoal back in the day out of this particular area. I think they did do some small level kind of, well, mining of minerals, top ground mining, not going. What's that noise? I'm not sure if that was a jay squawking. They sound different than a magpie. But yeah, a lot of history with this woodland. And isn't it absolutely fantastic that you can just come here. You don't have to pay to walk around here. That's a frightening thing when you say that. You don't have to pay to walk around here. Because quite simply, how long before that actually changes? And to be realistic, that's what happens to most places. There's a bat box. I've actually been in this woodland several times with you guys, but it was very early on in my channel, so I thought I'd bring you guys along just to show you what a nice autumn winter walk looks like in a nature reserve that doesn't see a lot of footfall. That bird box there's everywhere you look in here, there's small little bird boxes, but it's had the top ripped off. And you can see chew marks around the outside. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the work of grey squirrels. Now that's one still intact, it hasn't been molested by squirrels. So yeah, hopefully that will produce some young songbirds this year. Let's get down on this track without slipping and make our way down to the river. It's sounding really loud now, and there is still some really big old trees above me. Majority of it is young new growth, but there are still some old trees in here. The tree's quite interesting. They've done a bit of management on it, cutting off some of the limbs, but if you look right up there, there's storm damage. A dirty great branch has literally been ripped off, and there's debris all the way down here. You can see it all there. That's all come off the tree. Now, looking at the trunk, it looks like it's got dirty great big rings in it, and I suggest that is probably ivy or possibly other types of vines, so it's strangled it at some point. You can clearly see that there's a twist in it, even a tree of this size. Now look at all this wood that's been cut. That really is heartbreaking for somebody who's got a wood burner at home, to see all this timber that's going to just be left to rot. But what's really concerning, that is floating in mid-air. There's nothing underneath it. Can you see? I'll take you up this tree here. It's just hooked over the top. That is not going to stay there in a wind. Oh boy. I'm not going to hang about here. Now it's said that there are otters in the river that's below us, and you know, it's full of wildlife in here, and there is wildlife in here, and I've seen a lot of it, you know, everything that you can think of. But strangely, and it might not sound plausible, this is a wildlife sanctuary, but the biggest percentage of wildlife I do see when I'm in and around this valley is on the opposite side and the woodlands that flank this one. I just put that down, you know, human activity like myself coming through. The wildlife come here, do what they got to do, and or get the food, and then possibly move on out to the quieter woodlands that surround this one. It's quiet, but human activity, you know, probably does push a wildlife into the other woodlands surrounding this one, and yeah, I quite often see more wildlife in the other woodlands. Right, you can see and hear that river, and we got a big weir down here, and that sun is getting ever lower. Let's take the last few steps down to the river. It really is loud now. There's a lot of water going over that weir. Now it's easy to get hypnotised by all this water and sound and everything moving. It's so dynamic. It's almost hypnotising, and it has a therapeutic quality. It's kind of relaxing, and I just love the sound. But I can't stay here forever, I've got to keep walking. Now this track runs beside the river and the leat to where the old mill used to exist. Well, it still exists, but it's not a mill anymore. And it pops up into the lower meadow. And from there you can make your way back out. I feel really privileged that I have this on my doorstep. Where else can you walk in a woodland on this tiny crowded island where you aren't presented with litter, dog poo bags hanging from trees, all the detritus of mankind spread somewhere? You wouldn't have to look too far to find it. It is managed, and you've got evidence of man managing it. Obviously it's a trust, so they're going to do that. The woodlands opposite are the ones that provide the majority of the wildlife in this valley, but nevertheless this is a stunning walk, and I think this is possibly what's missing from most people's lives. Getting out into nature, just walking in a quiet woodland with your own thoughts. I certainly enjoy it, and it's not just because of my age and where I am in life at the moment. This is possibly what's missing from a lot of people's lives, I should imagine. You can just see the leat, which is that first track of water on the camera, and it's still in calm, and that would have gone to the mill. And over there you can see the flat, fast flowing river, and they begin to diverge quite widely apart. Right, we've just left that woodland. We're following the track here, And we're back into that first paddock. And it's to make our way along to the main entrance. So, because it's a wildlife area, or designated, I don't do any wild camping or anything like that in here, or any of my other outdoor activities. I simply come here just to enjoy it, walk around, stop and have a cup of coffee, a brew, and soak in the atmosphere. The same as you guys. You can come here as much as me. And if you're, ever in the North Cornwall area, and it wouldn't be a waste of time. It's thoroughly peaceful. And yeah, I'm glad I've been able to show you this little area. And perhaps one day I might bump into somebody from YouTube here and share a cup of coffee with you while soaking all this in. Oh, I just have secured a new location to cut from a farmer. He's given me permission to go down into a little bit of a valley. It does look like it has a lot of potential, so I'm really pleased about that. And yeah, I'll bring you guys along as I do a quick recce and a little look for what potential for stick harvesting that has. That's on top of my favourite location I got to go to. We've started the harvest as you saw the other day, but yeah, I've got to start making some good inroads into the harvest. You're probably thinking, why ain't I doing it now? Firstly, I don't have time, as in I don't have time to get all my kit, get over there, start cutting, start humping back up through a valley. I've got other commitments today. This was simply me coming out and having a cup of coffee in the great outdoors. And I hope you've enjoyed coming along with me. So all that's left to be said is, take care, stay safe, and I hope to see you guys out on the trail.